if you could do Harvard or just college all over again, what would you do differently?
I think there are two things that come to mind, and maybe they seem contradictory, but I don't think they are necessarily. The one thing is maybe branch out a little more, and the other one is focus a little more on a specific subject. So for the first one, I think Harvard gives you the chance to get to know so many different kinds of fields, and I kind of knew that I wanted to do social science going in, that I was really passionate about economics and politics and philosophy, but I also, when I actually ended up taking a science class this year for the first time, I discovered that that was something that I also enjoyed. So I think I could have ventured out into that field a little more. And then I think the second part is focusing more on one specific field. I think in the job market or later on, you find that, you know, when you're compared to someone who's really a specialist in one specific field, for example, in my case, that would be like, let's say Middle Eastern politics as opposed to just international politics as a whole. The one person who is actually taking, you know, a bunch of classes in that field and really done different research work in that field is probably more likely to be considered in that position. So maybe focusing also more on one specific field early on.
I think overall it would have been more daring. One thing I realized is, as opposed to anywhere else kind of in the world, this is an institution where there's a lot of opportunities that are just up for grabs and that are really available. So, you know, I feel like everywhere else it just kind of, there's always a notion of like privilege or like different chances or some political stuff that comes in, whereas here a lot of times I found myself just being able to do what I wanted to do. So I think I would have been more daring in the sense of like, you know, taking an interesting class, reaching out to someone that I thought was really cool and wanted to talk to, you know, jumped in a conversation, you know, yeah, just kind of any opportunity, went to a talk, stayed after to talk to super interesting panelists, just that type of stuff that I feel like is really unique about Harvard.
I guess probably one of the first things that I think about is I came into college like really focused on one thing, which was medicine and bio, and I really didn't consider that like I might have pretty significant interests that lied outside of there, and 4 years later I realized I have very significant interests that lie very far outside of there. What I'll probably be doing post-grad is definitely a pretty significant pivot, and I've met like really fantastic people who are actually aligned in terms of the things I want to do post-grad, not in my bio classes, but in a lot of the other opportunities and things that I pursued, in particular in like econ policy. So I guess for me, definitely maybe one of the things I regretted is that there were I had so many extra classes my freshman and sophomore year that really could have gone towards exploring things that were like not bio-related, that I just sort of assumed they needed to fill with things that were medicine or bio-related or somewhere adjacent. Like, I think if I had gotten exposure freshman year, the research experiences I maybe could have done, or just like the relationships I could have made with people that were similarly passionate about like the things I were, could have been totally different. And I mean, at the end of the day, I do love my concentration.
I might do differently, although I don't know if I will succeed, is just focus more on personal connections. I feel like I could have done that better. In general, like I'm very career focused, and I would take that as a general life advice to just focus more on personal connections, because the human potential at this university is just immense. Yeah.
The biggest thing that I would do different would be to get to know professors more. Over the last 3 semesters, I've gotten to know some of the professors in my classes much better, and it's just great hearing their experiences, all the stories they have to tell, and I think if I had known how much of a resource they could be freshman and sophomore year, definitely would have tried to take advantage of office hours, setting up meetings with professors, and just talking to them.
If I had changed something else, I wouldn't have the college experience I had. But if anything, I think try to focus more on what I like. That's important.
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I think one of the biggest things that I really wish I did more in college was sort of focus in on a couple of the activities that I really enjoyed. And one of my biggest sort of regrets that I wish I did more was this organization called Camp Kesem. And I joined the organization sophomore and junior year, and COVID happened one of those years. But I think finding those really great organizations where you feel that you're making an impact. I wish I was able to do that early on and really sort of do that early on and sort of be able to feel like I was doing something rather than just being bogged down in classes and not really focusing on making an impact.
So I think there would be one big thing for me, which is that I wish that I could have been more strategic in terms of navigating my college career experience. So I really wish that I had taken more advantage of the ample resources and opportunities here at Harvard to really network and connect with people from basically any field, anyone from any field. And I really felt that most strongly in my past year, in my senior year experience, when I was thinking about post-graduation plans and what I wanted to do with my life after Harvard. And I really wished at that moment that I really knew people from different fields and industries and career paths and graduate school, etc. Opportunities that could really help me gain more emotional and moral support.
I think a couple things maybe come to mind, and I'll touch on them briefly. The first one is just I would try to spend more time with people that I wanted to spend time with. So that would just mean, I think, being more intentional about planning activities with them or grabbing meals with them and doing more spontaneous things with them. I think I can definitely remember times when people invited me to things or like different activities that they had planned, but I would sometimes say no because, I had a problem set due the next day or an essay to write or readings to do. And I think looking back, and I think I've improved on this throughout college, is just that I would, rather than doing those things and rejecting those offers, would just go and spend that time with friends, because I think that's ultimately what I remember most after these 3.5 years or so. Another thing I think is just a little bit more practical. I study biology, and I think it would have been helpful for me to at least just join a lab to do research a little earlier on in my career. I think I had little experience with research coming into college, and so it took me a while to settle in and find a place to work. But I think even just having reached out to people earlier in the freshman year or sophomore year even, I think that would have been good just to get.
A piece of advice that I got a lot when I came to college was to explore as much as possible, and that came in the form of taking classes that I hadn't taken before or the extracurriculars that were new to me. And I feel that I got too caught up in that advice that I actually forgot to pursue the things that I knew for sure I enjoyed. So I wish I did more of that, took maybe classes that I knew for sure that I enjoyed and extracurriculars that were important for me throughout high school.